Well, with the nice weather here in the city of Indianapolis and across the state of Indiana, there is IBE and their summer celebration that is coming up, Indiana Black Expo. And join us on the news line. Talk about that and what's going on this year is Alice Watson. Alice, my dear, how's it going? Thank you very much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Abdul. And it's going well. We've got a lot of activities, and thank you for mentioning, first of all, summer celebration is coming up. But we've got some other stuff. But it's going well. We've been busy, positive busy, so that's a good thing.
So, how is Expo doing at middle age?
Well, oh,
51, 52 years old, I think is what you
you
guys are
know
now.
what? You're right. What is it? 55 years and growing. So we are we're having some midlife crises, of course, but we're surviving. We're trying to navigate this new norm. So we're hanging in there, actually.
Well, like I said, as long as you're not out buying a new Corvette or new Mercedes, I think you guys are all fine. I think you'll handle your midlife crisis just well. Let's start with how Expo has evolved over the years. Give our audience a little bit of the historical aspect of Expo.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we've traditionally, when we started as an organization, geared around community empowerment, of course. I mean, and those would be our two events. Of course, Summer Celebration, which was the original Indiana Black Expo. We just kind of changed the name to fit the narrative. And then, of course, also Circle City Classic, which is 1984. So we've had those two events, and over the years, what we've done is we've actually kind of migrated into programming uh, based off of the need of the community. So we do a lot more programming. We still have our events, but within those events, we have programming, and then we have our year-round programming now. Originally we started with one event, which was a Youth Video Institute, and now we have it went from Youth Video Institute to Youth Media Institute, and now it's the Performing Arts Academy. So we've grown that programming. Part of that, of course, was our relocation, if you will, to the east side of town. That's where we felt like there was the greatest need and we could make the greatest difference in the community. So, lots of programming with that. We still do things that are geared around advocacy work, leadership for our kids, post-secondary opportunities, career pathways. So, doing a lot of work in the community for the youth and families. And of course, our business, because if you look at us historically, the Indiana Black Expo was really to showcase the excellence of Black businesses. And so we still do that inside our exhibition hall. We've got over 300 exhibitors, predominantly Black exhibitors, showcasing to the entire community. So being inclusive, we've always been inclusive. We've always had our doors open to everyone. But really, our central focus now, especially with the change in the climate, has been to gear ourselves more towards the programmatic side to try to make as big a difference and impact as we can do.
Oh, when you say change in climate, Alice, what does that mean? Describe that change in climate.
Well, of course, the change for us has been DEI and the cancellation, if you will, of DEI. We were somewhat shocked with that because we've been partners with our state and our corporate partners for years, even prior to George Floyd, if you will. But we certainly have been impacted by it. We've lost up to 700, trending to $1 million, 700 to a million, 700,000 to $1 million. So we're figuring out a way to navigate and continue to exist and be impactful with our programming.
Alice Watson, the head of Indiana Black Expo, with us on the program today, talking about the upcoming events this summer. With the weather being a little nicer, Expo is part of Indianapolis's tradition and history, so we want to make sure they're acknowledged for all the good work they do. Alice, something else I also kind of noticed was the classic football game that usually takes place here. It's not going to be the Circle City Classic anymore. You guys have sort of changed that a little bit.
Well, we've pivoted. We've not canceled it. I want to make sure that everyone hears that. We've pivoted of how we do our activations for Circle City Classic again. And this is something, quite frankly, that we've been looking at since 2013. You know, the attendance has been on a decline year over year for quite some time, and with that decline in attendance, teams are also the price for teams has gone up quite a bit. So we started looking in 2013, 2014. We had a feasibility committee of stakeholders who were involved in that committee. I mean, some of the best as far as community stakeholders. Mickey Maurer was on that. Milt Thompson was on that committee. Chris Gall. We had quite a few, key stakeholders who have been in this space and has been supportive of us. We did some listening sessions with some of the original committee members of Classic, Joe Slash, and back then in 2013, and. Bill Mays actually also, I believe, was just someone that we had talked to about Classic, and the trend that we saw that was happening with the attendance. And part of that was just the explosion of classics across the country. I mean, there were, at that time, it was trending upwards to 27 classics across the country. And as you know, we were one of the first in the Midwest, and attendance was easily averaging over 50,000 inside the RCA Dome or the Hoosier Dome. And then even we packed it out with the first inaugural game at Lucas Oil Stadium. So as the attendance was trending down, we got these community stakeholders together to just look at what could we do differently? Is it something that we should consider vacating? And the actually the feedback from that committee was, you're averaging 20,000 in attendance. It's still a give back to the community. You got to lower your expectations. You're sitting inside of a venue that's over 70,000 in seating capacity. It's going to look like it's not doing well. Just keep doing what you're doing. We had some on the committee who said, you know what, you probably it's time to say uncle. But we kept doing what we were doing. And then another little dynamic happened. The cost of teams started increasing. You have now today you have teams, HBCU teams who are playing in large primary white institutions. Back in 2024, Tennessee State played Notre Dame and they were paid $1 million. And so that was becoming kind of the price tag for those type of matchups. They were very unique. And so the price for us was going up for two teams. We were starting trending upwards to $600,000 for two good HBCU teams. That price is continuing to rise. I mean, their cost is increasing. Some of that is because NCAA regulations changed over the years. When back in the day you could put football teams on buses and you could travel, 10 plus hours. You can't do that anymore. So they have to fly. The other dynamic that has occurred is that your HBCU bands are becoming as popular as the football teams. They're actually playing at NFL games. And so when you put that together, for us as a nonprofit competing against for-profits, and you also have some cities who pay for the whole, price tag, we had to really take a hard look and figure out, does this really make sense for what we're trying to do with our mission? And is there a way to do it more creatively and more economically? And so we just kind of made the decision that yes, we could. We could do it differently. We could still have all of our ancillary events. We could still do, the parade. We could still do the things that were more intentional as it relates to our programming, which is our education day, college career fair, exposing kids to post-secondary opportunities. We could still do our talent day. So we could still do all those events, the coordination, without losing uh, over $500,000. And certainly we have been kind of carrying the teams, if you will, or the game, because we had some discretionary funds that we could do that with. Well, we don't have those discretionary funds anymore. So it's why we pivoted and shifted, quite honestly, to high school football inside of Lucas Oil Stadium.
Our guest on the program today is Alice Watson. Alice is the head of Indiana Black Expo. So we're talking about Expo in its early 50s, kind of going through its midlife crisis, not necessarily going out and buying a new Mercedes-Benz or Corvette, but hey, things change. It's not your father's Expo anymore or your grandfather's Expo anymore. So we're talking about how they've sort of adapted and adjusted. Allison, obviously, I think it's interesting. We're talking about the Circle City Classic game as it's been known for so long gone. Maybe focusing more on youth high school sports. I think it's interesting with such an emphasis on youth these days with Expo's mission that switching to youth football actually kind of makes more sense than switching to college football.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think again, the whole intent for us is to expose kids and youth to HBCUs and the excellence of HBCUs as an option, for post-secondary. And so we'll include within those games, we will include the HBCU bands. We've got three bands. We've got Kentucky State University, we've got Talladega, and we've got Mouse College. Because the other thing, if we looked at the data and you have to do the analysis on what you're trying to achieve that aligns within your mission. And what we've found over the years, and I've been a part of it for quite some times, your heaviest recruiters for the youth are the bands. And so what we've basically done is like instead of the bands and they go out throughout the community when they come here in town and they perform, well, we're going to bring the kids inside the stadium for them. And so, again, it's all about HBCU excellence. If you look at even games today and historically, a lot of the attendees want to see the bands. And so we'll still have the band component for the high school football teams. We're also adding girls football, flag football, because as you know, it is, I believe that it will be recognized here in the upcoming years on the Olympic side. And so working with Coach 100 to get some girls into the stadium also to give them an opportunity to play on the field at Lucas Oil.
Also, another question I had for you too, like I said, as Expo continues to grow and evolve, how has and this could go either way because we've talked about this before, the social media aspect, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, whether it's all that, because uh, we can. I'll tell you, but social media is a double-edged sword. You can use it to promote, to reach people they don't necessarily reach, but it can also be a very toxic sewer that you got to sue people sometimes. As I well know for the idiotic things they write on social media. So how has social media sort of changed the way that Expo delivers its message and reaches its audience?
Well, I mean, I've probably been tossed around like the football.
We have had the
But
discussion.
I mean, it's really interesting. I try not to take it as seriously as some can. The unfortunate thing about social media is that if it's not bad news, it's not news. So a lot of times the negative gets more traction than the positive, and I anticipate that. I think that what we try to do is we try to stay focused on the ultimate mission and what we are doing. And I always tell even my staff, the most important thing that you have to do is see the great impact that you're having with the work that you're doing. There's always going to be naysayers. There's a lot of folks, again, who have been on social media over the years who talk about Circle City Classic and the teams. And quite honestly, Abdul, if you look at the numbers, 60 to 70% of the attendance was coming from outside of Indiana. They were actually alumni. And so, I try not to listen to a lot of the noise. I just try to do the work that I believe that the forefathers wanted this organization to do. And that's to really expose excellence and advocate for our African American youth and families. And, now we've expanded that to the underserved and the underrepresented. I mean, we're a little bit more diverse than what we have been in years past, but that's because there's a need in the community. So I don't listen to a lot of it. I mean, I usually get the links from someone else, but I believe that we're doing great work here at Indiana Black Expo. And so we're just going to keep doing what we do with our heads down. We listen to the community when it's relevant. and it's important to the mission of the organization.
And I want to say too, I got to give you guys major kudos because we talked about this before in the past. It used to be Expo was fine for those 7.5 days, and that second Saturday night downtown, things a little bit out of control. It is a whole different world. It's at a complete 180 from those days. So I got to give you guys credit for working with business community and making it very, very family friendly and family oriented.
Thank you.
Before we get ready to wrap up our conversation, and by the way, Alice Watson, our guest on the program today, for a few more minutes as we sort of talk about Expo this year. One thing that I was kind of wondering, Alice, this was my suggestion to improve Expo, to do like a Shark Tank for young entrepreneurs. Not necessarily they would be investment, like, hey, here's $1,000 grant for you to help your business idea. See, that's a freebie from me to you. There you
We
go.
kind of do that actually, Abdul. You know, we have the Business Training Institute, and we do a pitch competition for our youth and our youth entrepreneur series that takes place, the week of summer celebration. But we do, with the support of IAAQLI, we give grant funding for businesses all the way from the emerging businesses, which we get that support usually from some of our other banking partners. But the mid-range businesses, we have a program in which we give grant funding to. So, and they do pitches. We have a 12-week cohort that we do twice a year for businesses, and we've trained over 300 businesses these past 4 years, going into our fourth year. So we do that. And I take your suggestions and ideas, and we'll try to incorporate that even more.
Final question for you: as Expo gets ready to is into its fifth decade here in Indianapolis. What is the one thing you want people to know about Expo that they still may not know about, even though it takes place in their own backyard?
Well, I think I'd like for them to know that we're not just summer celebration and Circle City Classic. You know, we do programming throughout the year. We do it for businesses, we do it for families, we do it for youth. We're over here on the east side in a 45,000 square foot building, and we're doing the work. And so I think I would like folks to know that we're not just about entertainment. It's still a tagline that applies for us today. We party with a purpose. For those two major events of I call them the bookend events, but we do programming. We now, as you may have heard, we now own the health fair, which is critical for our community. I mean, that's $4,000 worth of free testing and services that is offered during summer celebration. And that's offered to everyone, the underserved, the underrepresented, the seniors, everyone. And so we're going to really focus on spreading that net even wider. But we're all about programming. We're all about making an impact and making a difference in our community where the need is the greatest.
All right, well, our guest on the program today has been Alice Watson. She is the head of Indiana Black Expo in their fifth decade here in the city of Indianapolis. Like I said, it's not just summer celebration or the event formerly known as Circle City Classic. Alice, my dear, thank you very much for being with us. Always good to chat with you.
Thank you, Abdul.